recording for those who are in our PM meeting. It's AM at least here for me. I'm not sure about everyone else.
For me too. It's AM here.
Same here.
Hey, Rudo.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing well. Have you been really busy?
I suppose so, yeah. To answer that question truthfully. How about you?
Yeah, very busy. I can't believe how quickly the summer has gone for us.
Yes. Hello to everyone else on the call.
Hi, Charla.
Hey, Mike. How's it going?
Completely forgotten about this meeting. My phone started making noises. I'm not actually sure what we're talking about. I've been in this e-congress of Carlos's in Lisbon. I started this morning, so I'm very
we don't have much to talk about today. The two things that I wanted to go over, I think we should do a round of introductions because I'm not sure everyone knows everyone in the call. And then after that, to discuss nominations for officer roles. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then I'm not sure if Rudo, you've been working on the next webinar.
Is now the time to speak to that, or?
I just wanted to know if you had an update and should we put it on the agenda?
I'm not sure because I wasn't at the last one, so I'm not sure if Jeff or whoever else was involved in that, whether it be Marina or John, had some updates or anything that they shared, but I could describe the status of what I think things are at right now as of today.
That would be great
because
they weren't able to attend last month. Okay. So we didn't get an update on it at all. But yeah, so why don't we just start with a little round robin? I think everyone knows me, so I'm just gonna skip me. If anybody has, I've met everyone, I think. Mike, would you like to go?
Yeah, I was off. Yeah, hi. I think I know most folks there. Ola, Carol, for example. I'm Mike Mccall. I work in the National Autonomous University of Mexico. I'm working on GIS for quite a few years, aspects of it, teaching courses and writing stuff about it. I'm in Europe for a couple of months. Some problems getting back to Mexico, but yeah, I was in the first of the webinars which we had a couple of months ago, and I'm really looking forward to the next one because it's a topic we deal with a lot. Indigenous land rights and so on. We do the mapping in that. But
oh, you're cut out.
I finished.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's me. Great. Would anyone else like to introduce themselves?
Sure, I'll go. I'm Tom Johnson. This is the first meeting I've attended. I'm the GIS coordinator for Mi'kmaq Plutahan. So we represent all of the New Brunswick Mi'kmaq chiefs.
Welcome.
So, yeah, thank you.
Well, then I guess I will introduce myself because you don't know me. My name's Charla Burnett. I'm the secretary of ISPM for the last 4 years, and so we're moving to our second cohort. So I'll no longer be facilitating these meetings, but my background is actually in migration and refugee studies, and I started using participatory mapping as a way to map resources for migrants. And now I work at Michigan State University and I coordinate interdisciplinary research for USAID grants and global development worldwide. So I'm enjoying meeting all of you. And And I've really enjoyed working with a few of you for the last 4 years, particularly Rudo and Michael, who have been supporting ISPM since the beginning with me. So I'll go ahead and call on Sophie.
Thanks, Charlotte. Hi, everyone. My name is Sophie Moa. I am currently the Community Services Manager at Humanitarian OpenStreetMap Team, or HOT, and I'm coming at this from a slightly different angle. My background is not GIS, but participatory engagement. So my background is very much in kind of different participatory approaches, and my work before here was working with Cambridge University on reverse engineering through community participation, different types of technologies that came out of Cambridge. So yeah, coming at this from kind of more of a like hands-on technology applied community participation approach rather than a GIS approach. To meet you all.
Thanks, Sophie. Carol?
Hello, it's nice to see you all again. I didn't know Tom and Sophie. I think that you were not in the last meeting. Well, I'm a researcher at São Paulo University. I am also a consultant in participatory mapping by my initiative that's called Living Communities. And mostly I work in urban planning, social participation, participatory mapping applications in especially vulnerable environments, urban vulnerable environments. And I also provide some courses and supports in participatory mapping projects.
Thanks, Carol. And then Rudo?
Hello, good morning from my end. It's nice to hear some of you that I know and to meet you, Tom and Sophie. So my name is Rudo. I work with an organization called Digital Democracy. For the past, I guess, 10 years or so, I've been working with Indigenous peoples in South America, in Suriname and Brazil in particular, on participatory mapping work to make ancestral land maps of their territories for purposes of land rights and kind of creating a repository of cultural knowledge. Currently very involved in stewarding open source development of softwares for Indigenous and participatory mapping, in particular Mapeo and Terra Stories.
Thanks, Rudo. So the process has been moving slowly but surely to train and onboard our second cohort. So I'm really thankful to have you all on board, and you've been with us for a few months now. But today we're going to be casting our nominations. So you can nominate yourself, you can nominate someone else, but obviously they can decline the role. But I did place a survey form in the chat. So and we're going to talk a little bit about the roles right now and see if you have any questions. But we do need these roles filled by our next meeting. The first role is to be our president, and Rudo has been our president for the last 4 years. So I'm just going to let Rudo kind of give a little kind of intro about that role and how it's been for him. Sorry to throw that at you, Rudo.
Oh gosh, right. Yes, I think I became president while I was in the field. So I was nominated and then came back from the field and was told that I was president. So it's I think a role. I'm not sure. I feel like Charla has been more of a president than I have, to be quite honest with you. But I think largely it entails a facilitation of meetings and sort of kind of setting the vision of the organization. Would you say that's fair, Charla?
Yeah. And to be our figurehead. So we like to push Rudo in front of the crowds to speak on our behalf.
That's right. That did happen once. Yes. Yeah. So public representation of the organization and sort of attending certain pivotal meetings where you could say a few words about the organization and then how it benefits scholars in the Global South and elsewhere, and sort of providing that kind of public vision. That's right.
Yeah, and as a volunteer role, obviously the hours required are quite limited. All general members are supposed to attend this monthly meeting, but for the officers, they might be asked to represent us at other conferences or in the field, and to discuss, what we do in practice, and try to get people to come onto our Mighty network. So it does have an additional hourly requirement per year, but it's not really set at a specific amount of hours. We're all been really flexible, wouldn't you think, Rudo?
Yep, I'd say so. Sorry, I was trying to find the mute button.
It's okay. So if you are interested in being the president, please go ahead and nominate yourself by filling in your name into the nomination form. Similarly, the vice president, which I believe is Monty. No, I don't know. I'd have to look. We obviously are interchangeable a lot of times. Our VP stands in for Rudo when he can't make it to other events. Sometimes they'll be asked to facilitate meetings, particularly if the secretary can't be around to help facilitate those meetings, and advocate more generally. So that is also open. And then as secretary, we talked a little bit last month about having an AM secretary and a PM secretary, because we are a global organization. We cannot fit everyone into one time slot. We've tried many times to send out doodle polls, and we really just miss a lot of our membership if we only have one meeting. So we split them, and I've been coordinating AM and PM monthly meetings for the last 4 years, but I think having 2 secretaries will make that a lot easier for the person who replaces me. And so the main goal would just to be to ensure that you send out an agenda and update the events page on Mighty Networks, and then to just facilitate the agenda amongst themselves. So we'll need 2 people for that role. If you're interested in helping to do that role, please go ahead and fill out the nomination form. Obviously, the president and the vice president will be there to fill in for you if for some reason you can't attend one of the meetings. I would say it's less than 5 hours a month, just compiling feedback here and there, and scheduling meetings if they need to be changed. And then we have a treasurer position that would look over the budget. We do have a yearly goal of raising $1,000 to help pay for our Mighty Networks platform. We've also discussed raising funds to help pay instructors to create more course content as well. So we're definitely going to be in the next meeting focused on fundraising and kind of the strategic goals for next year. So any of those roles we need to fill by next month. And so I'll be passing the nomination form out regularly over the next few weeks. And then we will have a vote if there's more than one person who wants to go after a specific role. So what I'll do is if you are nominated and someone else nominates themselves, I'll reach out to both of you. If both are interested or one wants to step down, it's really your guys' choice. But if both of you want to go for it, then I'll put you on a ballot and then we'll go ahead and vote. And we'll have everybody, vote for the officers, even if it's just one person. So we can try to get at least 50%, 51% majority vote as outlined in our bylaws. But because we're still a young organization, there's not a lot of competition between the specific roles for members. So usually if you nominate yourself and you're the only person interested, we'll just let you move forward with that because we need those roles filled. Does anyone have any questions about the roles or the responsibilities for those roles? Yep, go ahead, Mike.
Right, yeah, not exactly, yes, I suppose some questions about roles and the questions about the interaction between people. Because as Rudy said, actually, you have been the society largely. I mean, I mean, a lot of it, the ideas came from many people, but you're one who drove it and got it going. And as secretary, you've had really the very, very central role, and you have AM and PM inside your own head. So you talk to each other, you talk to yourself, and you set things up and you impose things. It's going to be rather different if you're going to have 2 secretaries and maybe try to get some of the other workload spread out a bit more. But with the president and vice president, I mean, I noted you didn't remember the name of the vice president, so that presumably means the vice president hasn't done very much, hasn't been very involved. Not that person, but just back. And I'm thinking as everything is getting bigger and doing more stuff and getting involved in more activities, this central core group is going to have to interact a lot more. And so maybe the roles are going to change, maybe nominally not, but in practice they will. And have to be a lot more intercommunication between people.
I agree. And I think that that's why it's important to also record all of the meetings, so that people can go back and the secretaries can go back and watch them. That's something that we didn't have before, that we've just been doing recently, which I think has been really helpful for people who can't attend. Because sometimes people, for instance, Hillary, who is going to be on the board again for the next 4 years, hasn't been able to participate because of inaccessibility to wireless access. So having these meetings recorded for them is really important, and make sure that we're inclusive. So we definitely need strong leadership. We need people who are going to show up and want to coordinate. So I definitely think you should all think about it if you're interested, and knowing that there is a time commitment and a responsibility. And if you don't continue to show up, that the organization will not thrive. But I'm moving into a role with the journal, so I have to go. I can't do both.
But in reality, people have been relying on you a lot to be doing things.
Yes.
And I think that has to change. Whoever takes over is going to have to push work out more and then get more group action.
Yeah, I mean, I think luckily we've consolidated a lot of what we were trying to do before to something really workable and easy, which is just the webinars. So because of that, really, there's not any additional activities that you would need to implement, except for the facilitation of these meetings and potentially, an all members meeting once a year. But if you find the drive and the initiative, it's a great platform to catalyze something innovative. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities to make this your own. Are there any other questions?
Yes, Shada, I have a question. So one of the things that isn't quite clear to me at this stage, and this might be just because of the newness of the ISPM. So it's not a problem, but I just want to check the there seems to be a lot of training that needs to be done around how to update the website, how to do the outreach, any sort of guidelines. I just wonder, is there anything in here already that's kind of set up for that kind of onboarding of committee members?
Yeah, did you get access to the handbook?
Yeah, I'm in it. Oh wait, I'm in the operations manual. Okay, maybe I'm not in the right place. Apologies.
Yeah, the operations manual should have a lot of that info. In regards to the website, Mariana is the technical person who's setting up the website. So as soon as we have that person nominated, we would have them have a one-on-one with Mariana, who will onboard them in that.
Okay.
Then I think we'll probably have Jeff at our next meeting do a tutorial for Mighty Network.
Okay, great. That's great. Thanks for that.
Yeah, no problem. Which will be super helpful, I think, for everyone. So Jeff will hold a presentation, because they also have another Mighty Network for their Firelight group. So he's been using it a lot and probably knows more than I do now. Any other questions or comments on the roles?
I have a question. Charla, about the other roles that I saw in the bylaws, about what we have, a communications officer, I guess, and the other one, directors by large. What would be these roles? Why they are not in the forum?
Well, communications has really just been the secretary. We don't have an extra communications person, and we kind of expect everyone who are on the board to advocate ISPM. And so when you're out going to conferences and things like that, we would like you to advocate. There's some presentations and some flyers in our Google Drive that you can use as literature to show at conferences and things. So we're kind of hoping to spread that responsibility out. If someone wants to focus on communications, I would say the secretary role is probably the best fit, because you're going to be doing communications between prospective members and the membership. So when someone else, and also the Mighty Network allows us to really facilitate that easier than needing a communications person, right? Because all of our communication goes through the Mighty Network. When the hosts update or post in the Mighty Network, it sends an email and a push notification to all of our members. It also has analytics that show you how many members we have. And so the secretaries are really tasked with communicating our monthly meetings, our webinars, and because the general board members and the officers all contribute to a webinar once or twice in their term, they're charged with doing the outreach for that specific webinar. So we share that communications role a lot. And then just anyone who's on the board is considered a general member at large.
Thanks.
But I hope, Carol, that you'll go for an officer position.
Yeah, I'm thinking. Okay.
All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, I will let Rudo do any updates on the next webinar. And I think from what it sounds like is people have been very busy finishing up their summer work. So perhaps there needs to be a subcommittee meeting for the upcoming webinar. What do you think, Rudo?
Hi, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be helpful. I was reviewing my notes, and the last time that we spoke about this as a group, I think, was in May. Time has flown by since then, I think, on everyone's end that's involved in this next webinar. I was very involved in a couple of projects and then some like personal medical stuff with my family over the past couple of months, and I know Jeff is expecting a baby very soon. So.
Oh, really?
I think, yeah, not to reveal things that he probably would have shared it with you anyway. But yeah, so I think, and John has been just completely slammed with work. I know that from various exchanges with him. The next steps was going to be to contact Nancy Peluso, who is a scholar, has worked in Southeast Asia. That was John's idea. And I think John was supposed to get in touch with her. Rachel Olson from Firelight Group, that's a clear contact of Jeff's, of course, because he works there. And then Mocha Apiti, who I did notify. So I think Mocha's on board, and I think we need to check in with Jeff and with John to see what the status is of the folks they were supposed to contact. I think once that's in place, you know, we already have the infrastructure in terms of the flyers and everything else to start advertising it and start sharing it. And I think one of the ideas that we had was to tie it to the Indigenous Mapping Workshop coming up and to present it almost as a collaboration between ISPM and IMW, and even a teaser, right, for the Indigenous Mapping Workshop in November. That said, that's around the corner. So we probably should start mobilizing something very soon for October. Of course, there's not a lot of logistics involved in terms of setting this up, right? But mainly just confirming people and then setting a time. So I'll make a note to reach out to John and to Jeff and to sort of figure out what the status of those two contacts are, whether they've confirmed. If not, maybe we can have a quick chat to see who else would be. You know, we have lots of folks in our networks, of course, that we could ask to be part of this. So I think a subcommittee meeting would be a good next step there, Charla. So I can reach
Okay,
out to them
great.
and sort of figure out what the status of things are and let the ISPM know.
Perfect. That would be fantastic. I really appreciate that. If you want, you can CC me in those messages too. I know that at one point Monty was interested in contributing some with a speaker from someone in the Philippines. So if you guys can't find or confirm any of those guests, please do reach out to Monty.
Sounds good. We'll do.
Yeah, and same here as well. We've got a couple of contacts working in that region on Indigenous groups, on Indigenous mapping. So yeah, same this side too.
Oh, really? Well, that's great. Because actually, I think what the issue is the time difference, and so we were thinking about just doing maybe a separate one that would be held at a time that's most beneficial, sometime in Asia.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, so maybe.
Yes,
Oh, go ahead, Rudo.
okay. Yeah, that was one thing that we talked about for sure is, you could have like a series of webinars dedicated to different geographies, indeed also Africa, for example. But in the future, we could do that with Indigenous mapping. But this initial one, we thought to frame as kind of in the same way that the first webinar was about the history of participatory mapping and had folks like Mike that were very involved in that early on. Similar thing with Indigenous mapping, right? So some of the folks who really have spearheaded this movement to start off, and then we could have some geographical focus on, for example, Southeast Asia and elsewhere, Latin America as well with translation. But yeah, depending on how this pans out and whether these folks will be available, we may end up hitting some of you up on that. So thanks, Sophie.
Yeah, no problem.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rudo, for that update, and I look forward to hearing more about it. And hopefully we could get that webinar, at least pick the date and stuff so we can all help pitch in and advertise. Just let me know how that goes. Were there any updates from anyone on events that relate to participatory mapping or things that you would like to share with the rest of the membership? All right, well, the only thing I have to share is that I've been coordinating an edited volume on evaluating participatory mapping software, and we are still looking for a couple more co-authors, one on ODK and another one on Ushahidi. So if you know anyone who has technical expertise in these areas, please let me know. It would be great to get. We definitely want to include Ushahidi, and we've been struggling to get authors for that specific chapter, and it's such a great software tool. I'd like to find someone.
Yeah, one of one of my colleagues used to work at Ushahidi, so let me reach out to her and ask her if she knows anyone.
Thank you so much. That's super helpful.
Clara, just yeah, you said what other things are going on. We should just like to promote the book by Peter Kiem. Not sure if it's actually really on the shelves yet or downloadable, but it's very, very soon. And the title is something like Participatory GIS and Natural Resource Management, mostly about conflicts, how PGIS has been used, of course, with his own case studies from Ghana, but with a very wide review of sort of theoretical and conceptual stuff of it. So I think that's the first book for a year or so anyway in the PGIS mapping field. It's from Springer, so if anyone wants to look on Springer Nature, they'll find it. And we also have a book. It's not quite on that, but there's some PGI stuff in it. We're also getting a Springer book, which is ready in about a month's time or something, on territory and territoriality in Latin America. But as it's a Springer book, it's in English. So the idea of it is to try and reach to non-Latin, non-Spanish speaking audiences. So with about, I think, 15 case studies from around Latin America about what does territorial and territorialidad mean in Latin America, but 2 or 3 of the cases use participatory mapping. That's also in the Springer library. Yeah,
that's exciting. Yeah, I'm really excited for Peter's work. My master's degree is in conflict resolution, and so that's where most of my theoretical and conceptual training comes from. And I've read through a lot of the literature on participatory mapping, and really Peter's one of the most embedded in CR scholars that I've been able to come across in our field. So definitely, if it's something that interests you, I'm sure Peter would be willing to share copies. He's a member and he's on our Mighty network, so you can just message him directly on the network and he'll get back to you. He's very keen on sharing the work. Anything else to share? Well, definitely, if you have a publication coming up or you see a job posting or a grant posting, please feel free to drop it into the Mighty network. I'm going to be transferring host privileges over to the board. So you'll soon, anytime you post, it'll update all of the membership. And so we'll just do that collaboratively. I will also be setting it up so that the secretaries, right now I have in Google an alert that pops up anytime participatory mapping is published on the web. So I do take those and I republish them on the network just to keep everybody up to date on current trends in participatory mapping. And then I also help create and house a database of different types of grant opportunities in international development, many of which require GIS technicians and participatory mapping experts. So anytime I come across a grant opportunity, I put it in there as well. So do keep your eyes out for that. Otherwise, that's all we had. Oh, Blessing.
Sorry, I was just trying to write something in the chat, but something else came out. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Blessing, can you hear us? If you can't hear us, you can go ahead and throw something into the chat. We started about an hour ago, so we're finishing up now. But we did record this, so I will be putting it in the Mighty network. Kind of a quick recap. We just talked about roles and responsibilities for officers. In the chat, you'll see a nomination form. If you would like to be one of the officers, you can see how that's structured in the bylaws in our handbook. We got a quick update. Our next webinar will be in October on the kind of the history of Indigenous mapping. And that'll be head by Rudo and Jeff and John. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to them. Otherwise, I think that's everything. Just any more updates? All right. Well, I will let you be on your way.
Okay. Thanks, Chala. And thanks for the last few years. You haven't left us yet.
No, I haven't left you yet.
Okay. Well, and hi to Tom. I hadn't met you before. I hope we'll be in contact also. And Sophie. Yeah. Okay. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Charlotte.
Bye. Thanks.